shape thought-mind depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He's a fellow, prolific podcaster, no other than Mr. Roy Coughlan. Welcome, Mr. Roy on Abstract. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Yeah, first of all, thanks very much, Daniel, for having me on your show. I appreciate it. I'm Irish, originally from Cork, and I moved to Łódź in Poland, which is in the center of Poland, 18 years ago. And I'm basically podcast coach. I help people get on podcasts, and I've got 6 successful shows. All 6 have been in the top 5% before getting to the top 0.5%.
Yes, and congratulations, Mr. Roy. Keep up the good work and let's empower people all over the world through your podcast. So today, let's talk about why you should start a podcast. So tell us, why should I?
So there's a few reasons that you can do it. Is one, if you have a skill set that you can share with the world, it's a great way of doing it. Another is a lot of times people might be coaches or consultants or business people, and they can get clients from their own show, and you can interview people that would be potential clients that normally you might get stopped by a gatekeeper, and you don't even have to be a specialist. So, for example, my crypto one, I understood a bit, but I bring the specialists on. So I'm constantly learning, but the listeners are also learning by me being inquisitive about the topic. And a lot of times people think, well, podcasting is saturated. And I hear, oh, there's 5 million, 4 million. So from my own research, it's in 90 days, it's over just over 700,000 that are active, which I would not class as active. 30 days is more accurate because some people put out one a month. I think anything after a month is probably nearly finished. And it's less than 500,000, something like 450,000. So when sometimes people think I've missed the boat on podcasting, I would say, no, there's still a massive market there for you to get involved in.
Well, interesting, Mr. Roy. How does hosting a podcast uniquely position your thought leader and trusted authority in your field faster than almost any other medium?
Well, I suppose if someone's doing a blog or just on the website, you're only getting to know a little bit. But when you're doing a podcast and if people are listening to you, they're actually getting to understand your skill set and realize this person actually knows what they're talking about. And you've a way better chance of them then becoming a client. So it doesn't matter. A podcast can be 5 minutes and some can go on to 2 or 3 hours. But irrespective of the time you decide to do it, when you get listeners coming in, even if you're interviewing people, a lot of the time you're commenting yourself and you're giving your life's experience. And by doing that, people realize, oh, this person actually understands, just say it's a branding or something like that. They say, oh, they're very good at marketing. And then when they're looking for somebody to actually help them in their business, they feel they know you because they're listening to you a lot, but they also know that you've got the skill set. And I don't think you've got the chance of doing that on a website or a blog.
A website and a blog, indeed. And Mr. Roy, in a world saturated with written content, what is the unique power of audio of human voice for building a deeper, more authentic connection with the audience?
Well, you can get it distributed very easy to a lot of different places. And I mean, if we look at Apple and Spotify, they go out to a lot of people, but also you can do video as well. So, I mean, all my podcasts, I do audio and video. And sometimes people will think of just doing it on YouTube, but there's a load of video channels as well. I put mine out on Rumble and BitChute, and that gets to a massive audience. And the thing is, if people are watching shows, usually they have to listen to it at a certain time. The beauty of a podcast is people listen when it's convenient for them. So, for example, if they're cleaning the house, they can listen to a podcast. If they're in the gym, they can listen to a podcast. If they're going for a walk, they can listen to a podcast. So when they subscribe, they're notified of the next episode, and you have the potential of actually, being in their room when they want to listen.
Why does listening to a podcast feel like one on one conversation? How does the intimacy foster a stronger community and more loyal followers than other platforms?
I think that's down to the host a lot of times, because sometimes ego can get in the way, and um, a host might forget about the listeners. But when you care about the listeners, so for example, if there's times that I'll have a conversation with somebody and maybe there's something said that I might understand, but I'd realize that there's a high percentage of people don't, I'll rephrase it, or I'll just question, is this what you mean? Taking the audience into account, or I'll actually ask the audience a question so they can give comments, and always thinking of the audience. And that way they feel, I always say the audience is like a fly on the wall. Make sure you always think of them, that it's not just about the two people having the conversation like us today. It's not just about the two of us. It's about bringing value to those that have actually honored us with their time for listening to the show.
Mr. Roy, how does having a podcast serve as ultimate networking tool, giving us a legitimate reason to connect with the interview with high level experts you otherwise would have access to?
Oh, there's a few ways of that. There's platforms. I mean, we connect on Podmatch, so that's a very good platform where you can actually do it. But a lot of people will reach out. A lot of agents will reach out, or you can actually reach out yourself. I mean, there's times that I want a certain guest, and you can write to them. Not necessarily just email. Sometimes they might have a form on their website, and because of certain guests that you've got, you build credibility, or with being in the charts. Sometimes people like to be on shows that are in the charts, and by showing that, you get more guests, and you can actually also have specific topics. So when they know, like for example, the meditation, if someone's doing breath work and things like that, they know that it would be suitable. So when I reach out to them, or they reach out to me, it's a good match, and that's how you can connect with people.
On content and audience building, Mr. Roy, unlike a social media posts that disappear, how does a podcast library act as an evergreen asset that continues to attract new listeners years after an episode is published?
Well, each episode has a new title and a description, and obviously websites to your guest. And what I do is I put in the hashtags relevant to that. So you don't know when it will land on someone's lap. Like, I mean, I look at my stuff, I'm podcasting since 2018, and there's still episodes, earlier episodes, they constantly increase. Like, because I track the numbers and I just go back. I always look at the first ones to see which are the most popular. And it's not that, they say the first 6 weeks are when you get your most downloads. They'll keep churning away. So, for example, the Polish, like it's been a while since I looked, but it was like, I don't know, 60,000 for the first episode. At one stage, I was looking at it, it was 20,000. Now it's up to 60,000, and it's just constantly going away. So, as you say, evergreen, unless you put it on a platform and it gets taken up. But as far as I know, when it goes on to like Spotify and Apple, it's there and it doesn't get taken down. So that way, your information is always there for people to find.
Mm, definitely. Always available and always to find. How can a single podcast episode be repurposed into a dozen pieces of content, making it most efficient content hub?
Well, I suppose now most people, because we're bombarded with so much content, And not everybody will listen to a 30-minute or an hour or 2 hour content. And by creating shorts and reels, and what you can do then is put them on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube shorts. If they're less than a minute, they can go on your YouTube channel if they're more than a minute. And there's a few other places as well, like Facebook. So, for example, with the Polish one, I there's times that we've got on just 6 shorts in a week, 10,000 views. And what that can do is just attract listeners. So people will look at something for a minute or two and then they realize, oh, this is for me. And you can outsource that. You can get somebody to do that for you, or you can do it yourself, the software that you can do it. But it's definitely worth doing it because you're kind of covering all different angles. You know, the people that like to watch short content, but they might become followers, especially if it's something that's relevant to their needs.
For someone in a specialized field, how can a podcast help them dominate a niche, attract their ideal clients, and become the go to voice for that specific topic?
Well, I mean, for example, I've seen a lot of, say, business consultants create a podcast, and then they're interviewing entrepreneurs and sharing their skill set, cross promoting each other, and with the conversation, everyone is listening to what they're able to do. And you, even on your show, what I recommend, I mean, everyone's kind of looking at monetization, different things you can do. You can do digital inserts, but the best way is if you're a business that provides a service, whether it's coaching, consulting, or selling something, you can say that on your own show. So that way you're able to actually sell stuff, or your listeners will go, oh, he's able to offer this, and that can actually benefit you.
How does the feedback and engagement from a podcast audience provide invaluable real time market research into what your ideal customer truly care about, Mr. Roy?
What This is an important one because a lot of times people, they might outsource that. They might just get somebody to be dealing with their social media and everything. I don't. On all my 6 shows, I engage, and I'm looking at the comments. I'm seeing what they're liking. I'm seeing what they're not liking. You can see the engagement and what's important to them. And for example, with the Polish podcast, at one stage I had a beatboxer, and at the start, it was like music was beatboxing, and I thought that was cool. He was 16, and I just thought it was nice. I had it for a few years, and eventually, I kind of realized that you know this isn't really serving me, so I took it away. And I had about 20 comments thanking me for removing it, and nobody had commented before. But I was conscious then of the other shows and stuff like that. If I'm doing things like that, are they really enjoying it? Instead of just assuming they are.
On a personal and professional growth, Mr. Roy, how does a discipline of preparing for and hosting interviews force you to clarify your own message and ideas better than the any other activity?
I suppose preparation. I mean, how I actually do it, I spend 1 to 2 hours, and even maybe more if it's really big guest. I'm looking. I mean, I have a form. I use Google Forms, so I get them to fill in that where they're giving. For example, I say, "What's your best videos?" If I want to watch, maybe they've done a TEDx that I can watch. I ask for their social media. Is there any specific topics? And I prefer, if there's agencies doing this, that they don't do it. And sometimes they pretend that the person filled it in themselves, but the agency does it. And why that's a bad thing to do is everybody gets the exact same podcast, because if they're just cutting and pasting and they're using the exact same questions, yeah, you could be on 100 podcasts, but what's the point of being on 100 podcasts if they're all asking you the same things? You're just repeating it with a different host. And it's better that you get something unique, because if you're creating shorts and stuff like that, at the end of the day, the person guesting wants to have content that will attract new listeners to their website or their business or stuff like that. And I think it's as hosts, like for example, what you're doing today. Now, like this is totally unique to me. Like a lot of the times that people aren't asking the questions that you're doing, and I love that. I think it's fantastic, and it's better for everybody by doing that because we both get a different experience. And also, I, as a guest, or you as a host, and when I'm doing it as well with people, the more value that you get. And people appreciate when a good conversation is done. So it's worth spending the time preparing when you're the host, but also me. I mean, I've listened to one of your shows. I go in and I look at all the different things. I do that with anyone I'm guesting on because I think it has to work both ways. You have to value it, you have to understand the style and exactly how it's going to be done. And I think when both the guest and the host do that, you end up getting a better conversation.
Mr. Roy, as a podcast host of six podcasts, what are your short term and long term goals?
What I've done is, I mean, I'm coaching, so I'm helping people to um, either start a podcast or existing podcasters to up their game to kind of get into the charts. I mean, I've been number one in a load of the charts, but I'm also conscious of people's budget. So I always had like a webinar that if I realized people were looking for help but they didn't have the money, and I put them. So now I'm after creating a school community for podcasters, existing podcasters, or maybe new. And I've courses and a load of resources. For example, like the platform. Uh, everybody will tell you why they're on different platforms: Spotify, Podbean, Blurberry. There's all pros and cons, and I include like 47 and advantages and disadvantages because sometimes you can move and it's easy to move, and other ones it's hard. And I just like to share all that because it's like me telling you which car to buy. I never tell anyone go with this platform because it mightn't suit you. But what I can do is I can tell you this platform, it's free, but after 90 days, your content disappears and you're only allowed 2 hours max. And others, you can do as much as you want. And I think by just knowing all these different things, so that's my long term goal is trying to build a community of podcasters. I'm doing a weekly Q&A and adding as much value as I can. But my main dream is I love when a podcaster is bringing value to the world, making the world a better place. Instead of listening to the likes of CNN and BBC and all that regurgitating lies, podcasters can give great value. And a lot of them, unfortunately, like I said at the start, from 4 million, we're down to just over 10%. And I want to keep them in the game and enjoy what they're doing. So my long-term vision is to build this podcast school community to help people to get up the charts, help each other inside it, and stay in podcasting.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Roy, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a podcast host?
Well, the first thing I would say is sometimes people think you need to be technical, and you don't. It's easy. Everything is difficult when you don't understand it, and I think podcasting is easy to do. And like for example, equipment. A lot of people have mixers and things like that. I don't. I use Audio Technics with a USB plugged straight into the laptop, and it works very well. I've got an acoustic gun around it that helps the sound get different lights. And when you start off, you start just make it. You might make a few mistakes. You might kind of think you've all sound checks done, and something will happen. A fan might be picking up things. There might be a doorbell, dog barking, and you just make checklists that doesn't happen again. Don't beat yourself up. And it's easy, and it's easy to upload. You create your RSS feed, and most of the platforms they'll start putting it to different places. But even if they don't, you just go in and add it once. So, for example, if you're adding it to um, Google Podcasts, I think they're gone now. But there's a load of different ones out there: Samsung, Amazon. You just go in and add it once. It gives you an email confirming it, and then it's done. And then every time you upload an episode, it goes out automatically. And when you're doing the video, like what I do is I have the audio and I put it on Spotify, so I have the video and audio on Spotify, and I have all my channels open, my YouTube, my BitChute, and Rumble. I'm just cutting and pasting, so I do it all at once. So I kind of compress everything, systemize it, and make it easy, and then it goes out. And all I would say is that the most important thing, like we kind of talked about preparation and things like that, but just make sure that you do the marketing as well. That, not just do your podcast, then go on to the next one. Try to be sharing it on the different platforms, on X, on LinkedIn, on Facebook groups. And by doing that, and when you see people commenting, give a heart, give a thumbs up, or write back. Just have a little bit of engagement, because then when you do that, it most of the algorithms will end up showing it to more people. Whereas if you ignore them, you're not going to do that.
Mhm. Yes, stop procrastinating, people. And thank you for that advice. If you have the passion to talk and talk and talk, please do create your own podcast. Mr. Roy, on practicalities and overcoming objections, why is starting with a small, highly engaged audience often more valuable than having a large positive following?
This is another important one, because it's the reason that some people actually stop podcasting. If you have maybe just 10 listeners per episode, or even 20, most people, they're comparing themselves with the big boys, Mr. Beast, Joe Rogan, and people with massive numbers. But if you were doing a speech and 20 people turned up, you would be very happy, and you'd come back next week. And if two left and two new or three new people came in, you would keep doing that. But for some reason, when you're seeing them numbers on podcasting, you might think, oh, this is no good. But as you build it, you're engaging. You'll actually see kind of true fans, because you'll see them commenting, giving hearts on different episodes, and then just build it as you go along. And yeah, sometimes people with massive following, they come in and they create a podcast because they think it's the thing to do, but they're not really engaging with the audience. They're just doing it because they think it's a good way of monetizing. And it's a reason why sometimes people with massive followers come in, do it, and within 6 months they're gone. So I think by building it slowly, keep engaging, people get to know you, get to know your style, and never beat yourself up about the numbers.
Slowly but surely, people. So, what is the simplest, most cost effective setup you recommend for total beginner to start recording good quality audio without getting overwhelmed?
Well, with a mic, I mean, the Audio Technics, I know it varies. You see it for €100, maybe €200, but I've heard that a Yeti is good enough, and you see some of them going for like $50. So regarding a microphone, not that expensive. The acoustics that I use, the surround, maybe $30 to $50. I You see the green screen behind me, because usually I record on Zoom, and I've got my logo and different things and that. They're
Mm-hmm.
about $100. And lighting, you can buy a ring light for $30. I've got kind of LED square lights. So you can build as you go along. And same with the camera. I mean, I've seen people on Macs, and the camera on the Mac is actually very good. I do a show with a fella. He doesn't have a camera. He's got his Mac camera, and it's better than some cameras. So, and you can buy a camera cheap enough as well. So sometimes people come along and say, "Oh, you need to buy this mic," and people go in and spend thousands on equipment. I think the most important thing is put the time into having an engaging conversation. And when people are interested, they'll come back or share it, instead of, like, as you said earlier, procrastinate. Sometimes people want everything perfect and then do it. And I think like this, it's raw, it's live, you're having a conversation. Whereas I've seen people, they do 100 takes. I'd never do that. I record like this, even if it's not going out live. I do a load of lives, but even if it's not, it's just as it is. And when I started off, I used to be doing a lot of editing. I do Audacity, that works both on the Mac and the PC. It's free, and I'd be taking out pauses and filler words and things like that. And it takes a lot of time. And in the end, I said, I'm listening to a lot of the shows, and it's just raw and how it is. And that's the way a conversation is if you go out and meet your friend for a coffee or a beer. So, no, and unless something happens, obviously, if a postman knocks or something, so even if you have a sign, it's happened to me. Like, I'd have a sign on the door, someone bait the door down. You just take that out, and that's okay. And so everything is easy, and all I'd say is create systems and just kind of learn as you go along. And it's nothing to worry about. And what will happen is that you might realize is when you start having conversations with all the ones I've had on like health, I talk on a lot on health and things like that. I benefit from it. So not only am I sharing a message with the listeners, but I'm benefiting as well, and I'm taking this information that I've just had from specialist guests. And as you know, like you don't get people saying, no, I'm not going to answer that. So even if someone's a marketing specialist or anything, they'll tell you everything. If you ask the right questions, you get the right answer, and which not only benefits your listeners, but it'll benefit you as well.
How should a new podcaster define success in the first year? Is it download numbers, audience feedback, or landing one dream guest or something else?
I think because numbers can fluctuate. So, at the start you might get a boost, and so you can't say it's a failure if it starts dropping low, but then it might plateau and then eventually it'll start taking off. I think, like you said in the first year, when I'm coaching people, I say commit to a year, because that's the problem. A lot of times people, they'll say, oh, I'm going to do a podcast. And after 3 episodes, they're like, this takes time, or 10 episodes, and then they stop. So when you commit to a year, you'll actually realize the benefit, the community. Like podcasters share a lot of information. It's not as if we're like, we're competing with each other and we're kind of going, you know, I don't. I don't want to give you tips or something like that. Everybody shares the information with each other. And so when you're starting and you're doing it for a year, success is just, I think, having fun, enjoying the conversations, enjoying the process. And not like, don't do it to make the money. It's hard to make money in podcasting, but when you do it right, you can have forms that they fill out and they can click on, they want your service. You can help people do shows, and you can even charge. Some people charge for people to come on shows when you build it as you go along. But I think the most important thing is if you're doing something that you're passionate about, it's not a job, it's a passion. And if it starts benefiting, everybody benefits from it.
Everybody, for sure. So, Mr. Roy, before we wrap up our discussion for today, please do listen to one of my audiobooks, people, available on Audible. Book 101 Review Volume 3 and Earth Fever, The Unraveling Climate and Our Race to Restore Balance. Book 101 Review Volume 2 selected. And Stand Tall, Stand Together, Breaking the Chains of Bullying. Book 101 Review Volume 1, highly recommended. And threads of existence weaving the tapestry of life, and life is too short. A journey of discovery, fulfillment, and joy. They are available on Audible and one of the bestsellers. So, Mr. Roy, ultimately, beyond strategy and networking, what is the most fulfilling and transformative part of podcasting journey that keeps hosts going?
I think it's building relationships, because sometimes you connect with people and you just have a good bond, and they'll contact you when they find people that are suitable for your show. And also, you can recommend them for other shows when you build a relationship. So it's kind of like you've got each other's backs. And that's why I like this community. And I, I think when you're having a process and systemizing everything, it doesn't become a job. It becomes something that's actually benefiting the world. And when you know you're doing something for the betterment of mankind, it's no longer about you. It's not your ego. It's about how can I make the world better when everyone just complains about it and you do the opposite.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Roy Cullen. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support all your podcasts?
Well, they'll find the 6 shows on roycoughlan.com. That's COUGHLAN.com. And if they're interested in the school platform, school.com/podfather/about, or if they're looking for virtual assistants, va.world. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Roy Cullen because if you support him for sure, more and more empowering episodes of all the podcasts. So, Mr. Roy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
Welcome, people. See you soon.